James, are you as excited for the 35th anniversary of Zelda as I am?
Absolutely.
Are you sure? Because I bought a cake.
I mean, that's fair. The Nintendo Direct's about to start.
I'm so excited.
Thank you for watching.
Really? That's it? I'll get the printer started. Seeing as Nintendo phoned it in for the 35th anniversary of Zelda, we decided we'd celebrate by making the Master Sword.
We're using these amazing files designed by Adam Reed. As always, we'll have a link in the description. Adam's files are split into smaller pieces so they can easily fit on a mid-sized printer.
Our parts were printed in PLA on our Prusa i3 Mark III. To finish the blade, we are going to be using some familiar techniques, as well as a few new ones. We have a lot of work, so let's jump right in.
Alright, we're going to start off with some basic assembly. By building the main parts now, it's going to make sanding easier.
And we can start getting rid of those seam lines as early as possible.
The files are designed with registration keys to fit 1/8 by 1/4 metal pegs. However, we opted to use wooden pegs instead. They have a little more give and are a bit cheaper.
Because we made our own by cutting 1/8" dowels down to size. You'll need a lot of these and you'll end up losing even more, so be sure to cut some spares. These pegs don't provide too much structural support, so Adam's design is made to house a 1/4" threaded rod that we'll insert later. Drill is helpful to open up any holes that might be a little tight.
Just be sure not to drill through your piece.
Once all your pegs are placed, you're ready to glue everything up.
Be sure to test fit before you glue it together.
We're using CA glue to hold everything together because we're impatient, but a 5-minute epoxy would give you a lot more strength. These pegs are super helpful in aligning your parts. When gluing up the handle, make sure these two small holes are aligned. This will be very important later.
Now that David has all the halves glued up, we can get the blade assembled.
I'm I'm sanding the ends of each segment to ensure a flush fit and to give a little tooth for the glue to hold onto. Just like before, these parts use wooden pegs for alignment.
The blade does taper, so we're making sure to assemble it in the correct order.
Just a little tape to help hold things in place while the CA cures. The threaded rod is then inserted into the blade and held in with a little foaming Gorilla Glue. The threads provide more surface area for the glue to hold onto. James, do you know what time it is?
Sanding?
You know it.
Kill me.
We're using 80 and 120 grit to really cut through these layer lines.
Wood filler is used to fill any gaps and then sanded back down. The paint we're using later adds a texture, so we don't really need to be too precise. And more sand.
And then we sand a little bit more.
And after that, we sand it.
You can also use power tools for sanding.
Now David can move on to the blade.
Okay, let's get started.
Real quick, you have mail.
Oh, okay, we'll open this up. Activator. I start by filling the gaps with CA glue to cover the seams and help reinforce the joints. I use Activator to instantly kick the glue. To keep things nice and flat, I start with the orbital sander with an 80 grit sanding pad. I'm extra careful to make sure things don't get too hot and end up melting the plastic. This sander just blasts through layer lines. I then swap out for a 120 grit pad. Then it's time for more hand sanding. I take my time making sure everything is as smooth as possible. This will help get that perfect finish later. As always, we're using our favorite automotive filler primer to get rid of any lingering layer lines. Dust has been removed before spraying.
We alternate between priming and sanding until we get a finish that we're happy with. It's important with metal finishes to get things as smooth as you can.
To achieve the metal finish on the blade, we're going to be using the same graphite powder technique from our Mando helmet build.
We want to see if we can get color to show through the final finish. The goal is to get a bluish glow.
So we set up a test using a gloss white and a gloss blue spray paint.
It didn't really come out the way we wanted, so we just ended up going with white.
This could be a cool technique in the future that we can maybe try and mess around with.
While David's painting the blade, I'm going to make some silicone molds. There are 2 gems on either side of the blade, and we thought it would be cool to cast them in resin, adding another level of detail. For more on making open-faced molds, check out our concrete coaster video. I start by gluing our part to the bottom of 2 solo cups. I then mix up the moo silicone using equal parts A and B. Once everything is evenly mixed, I pour a thin stream over the positives. And we'll place these in a warm place to cure.
The handle is a single color, so I go ahead and assemble everything before painting. As with the other parts, wooden pegs are used for registration. I ensure everything is straight and fitting well before gluing. I also scrape the surface to ensure the glue has a good hold. Again, a 5-minute epoxy would be a better choice here, but I'm just using CA glue and an activator for quick results. Then the pommel is glued on in the same way, and we're good to paint.
The silicone is nice and cured, and we're ready to demold. The solo cups peel off really easily, and I'm left with a nice open-faced mold ready for resin.
To cast the gems, we're going to be using a basic 2-part resin. And of course, when working with resins, be sure to follow all safety precautions. Just like the silicone, we're going to be mixing equal parts A and B. To tint the resin, I add a few drops of yellow alcohol ink, mixing thoroughly. The resin is then poured into these beautiful molds James has prepared. I agitate the mold slightly to remove any bubbles, and I set this aside to cure.
The color for the handle came out perfectly, and the texture was an added bonus. It almost looks like cast metal. We'll have a link to the color we used in the description below. There are a few gold accents on the handle as well as the holders for the gems. I'm going to color these using Rub and Buff. You might recognize this product from the latest B-Sides episode. The Rub and Buff creates a really convincing metal finish.
To push this replica over the top, we're going to be adding a leather wrap. Adam's model includes these fantastic guides for placing the leather strips, making this so much easier. I cut the strips to length, making sure to give a little bit extra just to be safe. I work slowly, gluing as I go. By alternating the overlaps, I'm able to create a nice lattice pattern. Once I get to the end, I trim the strips and tuck them into the pommel to make sure nothing comes loose in the future.
The resin is cured and ready to be demolded. These fit nicely into the holders and will eventually be glued onto the handle. But first, I'm going to give them a quick coat of gloss varnish.
The blade is finally dry and ready for graphite. Now the stuff gets everywhere and it's not good to breathe in, so remember to wear gloves and a mask. The process is pretty straightforward. I simply use a cotton ball to rub the graphite into the blade. I clean any fingerprints or smudges up with isopropyl alcohol and continue with the graphite until I reach a consistent finish. This is not a clean process, but the results are just amazing. This is the same process we used in our Mando build. but instead of using a black undercoat, we used a white undercoat to get a more silver finish.
It's finally time to assemble.
To hold everything together, we're going to be using a little bit more of that foaming Gorilla Glue. I had to do a little bit of sanding to make sure the blade fit into the handle.
I'm dampening the metal rod with water. This will activate the glue and start the curing process.
It was a bit of a trial and error process, but the final fit is near perfect.
And for the final touch, I'm gluing the gems in place. And we're done.
I don't care how many times we do this graphite finish is always just so amazing. I'm surprised at how smooth it is and just how much it just looks like metal.
It's really almost unbelievable. The shine you can get from that, I just really don't understand how it works.
Right? And the reflection is ridiculous. It's almost mirror-like.
Feels amazing in hand. The metal rod really gives it a nice structure. It doesn't feel cheap or flimsy or anything.
I'm also a fan of all the different materials we use, having the clear resin, the gold parts, the textured blue, the leather wrap, and of course the beautiful blade. It just really makes it seem real, and I just can't believe we 3D printed this.
And shout out to Adam Reed for designing this file. It's spot on. It looks exactly like it looks in the games. And once again, the link's in the description.
Yeah, we did a lot of hunting of a lot of different swords that are out there, and his was kind of a little bit of an unknown, but honestly, just the engineering into how this is put together it's perfect. It was perfect, and it was really easy to work with. I gotta figure out how to make a scabbard for this, or maybe a pedestal to stick it in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay up to date with all of our future content.
We're going to be doing our first Marvel project, and we have a special Star Wars themed collab where we'll be tackling a much requested prop. Thanks for watching.
See you in the next one.